Hi, today I'm going to make a French cleat wall. I've never had one before, but every other video that I watch on YouTube, lots of woodworkers use them and they look really good and really effective. I've got this free space on the back wall where I'd like to put my tools, so this is the perfect opportunity. I've got a piece of 18mm ply, which is 1200 by 600. All the videos say, or most of the videos say, you should be roughly 5 inches per cleat and then cut it down the middle. So I should get 4 of those out of this piece. Now you're going to say, if it's 600, why don't I just divide it by 5 and have 5 1200s? Works out slightly too small when you consider the width of the blade as well. You'd end up with about 11.5. So I've already marked this. Let's just grab a pen. I've marked this at 10 inches. 10 inches? 5 inches should I say. 5, 10, 15, 20. I've already set my saw up at 5 inches, which is approximately 130 millimeters. So that's all ready. Just a case of whipping this down and making the first cuts. I'm now going to set my blade to 45 and lock it into position. There we go. So the next job is to cut these down the middle. So I've adjusted the blade to the centre, I hope. This is the centre of the piece, but it doesn't work out like that. You've got to cut it so it's going to rip through both pieces from there to there, if that makes sense. Hopefully you'll see when I make this first cut. I'm not sure if this has worked. This is going to be trial and error. But it looks pretty good to me. That'll do. Let's do the rest of them. Right, so with that done, you now have some very sharp edges. So I'm going to remove those by putting my saw back to a true 90 or 0, whichever way you look at it. And I'm going to remove those very sharp edges slightly. Now these are about 1 millimetre out, and I want them all to be the same. These are 1 millimetre smaller. It must have been slightly out on the fence. I want them all to be the same. So what I'm going to do is say that these ones are all for the wall. So these are all going to get a W on them, which you can't see from there. So I know which ones are which. Next, it was just a case of giving these all a very light sanding just to remove any rough edges. I started doing this and then I suddenly realised that I'd recently set up my spindle stroke belt sander, so it was over to the belt sander. Then it was over to the wall to make some space. You can probably see, I've just put the laser on. Get the first screw in. There's a batten just here, so that would be perfect. Okay, so let's get this lined up with a laser. That's looking pretty good. Lift the laser up just a smidgen. And that's spot on. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. First cleat. Now, one of the videos that I've watched suggests that you go 6 inches from the bottom of one cleat to the bottom of the next cleat. So I'm going to make a little wedge. So, got a wedge that's just approximately 6 inches. It doesn't have to be exact, obviously. Take that to the edge of the window, like so. And let's get a screw in there. Now this next bit is probably a little bit over the top, but if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I do like all my screws in a nice straight line. Right. Didn't think of that. So once the block was removed, I carefully lined this back up again with the laser. I then put an extra couple of screws on the left and on the right hand side, as well as the 2 that are in the middle, so 4 per cleat in total. It was then full steam ahead, getting the rest of the cleats on the wall. So I've deliberately sped this up because you've seen me put the first 2 up, the rest are just exactly the same. As always, a little bit of sandpaper just to remove the rough edges. So that's 4. I'm probably going to end up putting a couple more. I think that the other pieces, the offcuts for the other sides from these, obviously not all of it will get used, so I'm hoping I can probably use 3 to hang the tools and get another one up there, but let's see. Well, as you can see, we ended up with 5 in total, and we'll see where we go from there. It was then time to make my first cleat. This was going to be a nice simple one, and it was going to be a little shelf stroke tool holder for either a drill or an impact driver. So start off with a piece of cleat cut into a section. Now the cleats themselves that slot onto the wall, not the ones that are already on the walls, but the ones that are going to slot onto those, are too tight, as you saw. So I've removed about 10 to 15 mil off of each one. I'm then going to attach another piece of ply onto the cleat, as you can see now. I've used some wood glue and some screws to make it nice and tight. I don't want this coming off the wall, obviously. And as I say, this was going to be the first tool holder stroke cleat. I'm not sure of the true terminology. I'm calling them tool holders, but I'm not sure what they're really called. Now, I was just about to try this on the wall when it suddenly occurred to me that although one cleat fits into the other cleat, when you put a tool onto the shelf or any amount of pressure or weight, there's not much to stop it leaning forward. So I looked at the videos that other people have done making these, and I've realised you have to put another section at the front. That will then hold it in place. Hopefully you'll see exactly what I mean in a second. So to get a nice quick fix, I'm using a little bit of mitre adhesive with some accelerator, using a 10-second rule where you hold it down for 10 seconds, and then after that it should be stuck. I then will turn it over and put a couple of screws in, because that's just me, as you know. So that's one down, probably about 100 to go. No, seriously, I'm not sure how many. I'll probably get, I don't know, 10, 15, possibly 20 tools on the wall. But that's the first one done, and it works. Quite happy with that. So, same again, time to make a few more shelves. Yep, pleased with that. Now, I do appreciate these are essentially just shelves at the moment on a cleat wall, but I want to see how I get on with these, and I'm going to move on to some slightly more adventurous shelves in a second, or cleats. So that's the first three made. Next, I wanted to make a shelf for my circular saw. Now this was slightly more tricky, mainly down to the weight of the saw. This saw is quite heavy, so the shelf needs to be quite a bit wider to take the size of the saw itself, but also needs to be a little bit stronger. I overcome that problem in a second, as you will see. So this one is for my circular saw. I have cut it slightly too short because I didn't allow for the piece to sit on top. I thought it was going to sit on the front, so it is slightly too short, but it's still well held in position. But because of the weight of it, I've cut these little wedges or angles, whatever you want to call them, to help strengthen the weight of that saw. So I'm just going to fix those on there. What I meant to say was to allow for the weight of the saw. I was just thinking to myself, that's crazy. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 screws to hold that in place. But it needs the strength because of the weight of the saw. Perfect. Now I must confess, I've just been and remade this. I wasn't happy with the way the saw was sitting. I was concerned if it fell, the weight of it, plus a blade, could be quite dangerous. So I've made it, it's now wider, and the saw, if anything, has more room. It's all the way back. That's much better. Next was a holder for my sander. Now, I already had an idea in my mind of how I was going to do this one. I always think that dowels have so many uses. It's not very often I actually use a dowel for its intended purpose. I often use them for other things like this. Well, that worked, but I'll show you that in a second because that's the same as the others. I just attached it to a cleat and fixed it to the wall. But what I've moved on to now is making some holders to keep all my screwdriver bits in. All the screwdriver bits that would normally go into the end of an impact driver. You'll see in a second. One of the things that I really like about this drill is it has a digital readout at the front, which you probably can't see from now, which allows you to drill down to exactly the same depth each time, or you can use the manual depth guide on the side, which is the little red lever. I've gone for 2 rows because, as you know, we all have plenty of driver bits and this will get filled up really quickly. I've spaced them 15mm from centres, if that makes sense. Now just giving it a quick sand over, and then once I've done that, I'll cut it to size. I just wanted to make sure that I could actually get driver bits in and out. I was a little bit concerned it was too close to the shelf above and I wouldn't be able to get them in and out, but it actually worked out fine. Then it was time to just glue it together. I'm using a little bit of wood glue. I was going to use mitre adhesive, but changed my mind at the last minute and went for wood glue. I always put plenty of glue on, but then what I do, before I attach the 2 pieces together, I just run round the edges with my finger. I know we shouldn't do that, but just so there's no sort of overflow really, or spill out or leakage. I'm not sure what you want to call it. And then, like all of us, just wipe the excess glue over our jeans. I then just clamp it together with a couple of clamps for about 30 minutes, that's all. Doesn't need much longer. This glue goes off really quickly. Now, I've clearly not recorded every single tool rack that I've made. That would be a little bit boring, but it's fair to say that I'd started to get into the swing of it and kept on coming up with new ideas. And what will happen is this wall will change and develop over time. What I'm making now is a holder that will hold my multi-tool to the wall. You'll see it shortly. I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you where I'm up to so far. So I'm now getting into the swing of it, and I've made quite a few holders, as you can see. This is the one that I've just finished for the multi-tool, which you'll see there in the middle. This is another one I didn't show the build, and this just simply holds the jigsaw in place. And this is the one that you saw a little bit earlier that holds my sander. But now I'm going to talk you through the rest of the cleat wall. Okay, so this is where we're at so far. It's not completed, it's almost completed. It'll be one of those projects where you'll keep adding to it as you go along. But let me show you where I'm at so far and how the tools work on their relevant holders, whatever you want to call them. So let's start filling these shelves. Starting off with 2 drills. Impact driver. And a couple of little holders that I made for these. We've then got my saw. Now I didn't show this in the video, but I've added these extra couple of pieces which prevents the saw from falling forward. So let me show you how that works. The saw goes in as before, but now it can't fall off. That's as far as it will go. We've then got my laser level. Really simple, just a little holder to hold it in place. Jigsaw, again, quite simple. Multi-tool. And then sander. And the sander just slots into place. I've also put this up, which is nothing to do with the French Cleat Wall. So that will hold the blower. Just there, fits quite nicely. A couple of little accessory shelves. And then the little holder that I made earlier on, just there. I'll fill this up completely. And then something else that I've added, which is made out of sort of waste pipe, stroke PVC pipe, I'm not sure what you call it, which you use for like a bath or a kitchen or a sink waste. And that quite nicely holds in position all my multi-tool bits. I didn't show that on the build, but that was really easy to make. Now I'll hold all my bits, and that is pretty much it for now. As I say, I will keep adding to it. I'm going to put a couple more cleats at the top and maybe a couple at the bottom, and it will be one of those ongoing projects. But that's it for now. As always, thank you for watching.